everywhere. So how do I contact? Right? This patient engagement leads obviously are trained. They know the policies and the guidances of how to engage patients and patient advocacy groups. And so our colleagues will work with them to execute on engagements.
Okay.
So at this point, thank you. And I don't think we have time for questions, but what I will say again, thank you to NewYorkBIO for the work that you do and for really bringing in patient advocates, partner with all of the other stakeholders in really improving outcomes for patients worldwide. And at this point, I'm excited to start the program of our first patient perspective by Calvin Harris. Calvin is based in Brooklyn, New York, and serves as CEO of the New York State Society of CPAs. He also is a member of the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research's Patient Advisory Committee and the ACTE Now Patient Advisory Committee. He was diagnosed with sarcoidosis in 2014. Sarcoidosis is an inflammatory disease characterized by the formation of tiny clumps of inflammatory cells in one or more organs of the body. Calvin's version of sarcoidosis affects his lungs, his skin, lymph nodes, and bones. Through Calvin's journey, he's developed a new love that was initially told he would not get to run. But he didn't give up, and later he was encouraged to pursue his love. He now writes a column, Run Your Own Race. And that's on sarcoidosisnews.com. Running is how to better learn about himself and his relationship with this disease. Please welcome Calvin.
Good afternoon. I'm really excited to be here, particularly as a patient advisory member for FSR, and I want to begin by thanking you all for all you do. I have to admit that when my journey with sarcoidosis began, it never occurred to me how important it was to have a team that works with you. And I want to just walk you through a special Sunday in November for recently. So I am a very unlikely runner for many levels. At 53, I'm about 13 years older than the average marathoner, and those who run my age usually will be that person. And at 6'4", that's why I'm not standing up, I'm killing the max. I'm about 8 inches taller than the average marathoner, and at 230, can you see where I'm going? I'm about, I've seen 70 to 80 pounds heavier than the average runner. And oh, by the way, I have sarcoidosis. I actually forgot about lymph nodes. To be honest, I forgot. I have that also. In my lungs, so I have diminished lung capacity. So there are all these reasons why I shouldn't be able to live. And I've had the pleasure of meeting others with sarc, that's a long time, so I'll just call it sarc, who were runners and because of this disease weren't able to do so. So I honestly can't say why or why I'm able to do it, but I know what a huge part of it is the team that works with me. I'm a transplanted New Yorker, so that's the way I can say it, who came up from Maryland. So when I was in Maryland, I was with Johns Hopkins. I still see a doctor at the Johns Hopkins sarc clinic, one of the few clinics out there for it. I happen to have a job to where I'm able to work from home. So I have that privilege. I have excellent health insurance, and I do okay financially, or even if my insurance didn't cover it, I can cover things out of pocket, such as when I had to pay for antibodies when I got COVID for sure. So because my insurance wouldn't cover that, so my health more but never did I expect I would start running. When I first told my doctor at the sarc clinic that I wanted to run, she paused, she had a look of panic, and then thought about the patient she had and said, okay, listen to your lungs. Now in my mind, I heard, yes, you can do it, but listen to your lungs. And that's been one of my phrases. Listen to your lungs, run your own race, and then just see what happens. And I gotta say, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I probably would have never run. When I came to New York, I went to studios. I went to the Peloton studio all the time. I went to my own gym and even our apartments. And when the pandemic started, New York regulations closed everything, including the private gym. But there was one thing my doctor said I could still do, and that was run. I could run outside. I literally would crisscross the street all the time. I learned how to run with a mask. I tried all sorts of different masks. None of them are easy to make running. I did it. And then over time, I tried to do more. I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more. Now, when you're at the starting line of the New York City Marathon, it is the most surreal experience ever. You are surrounded by thousands and thousands of people. And it was honestly scary to me. This is me then in November, and people as far back as the eye can see, and I can assure you there were far more people in front of me. I had never been around that many people since COVID without my mask that close to me. I was really scared on many levels, to be honest. But then the race started and it felt normal. I was running through Brooklyn after crossing the Verrazano, and I was home. Since I've come to New York, I live in Brooklyn. Love Brooklyn. I had trained a lot in Brooklyn, so everything was great. Right around mile 7. Now, the marathon, by the way, is 26.2 miles. At mile 7, my lungs started seizing over. Well, but at that point, around mile 8, I ran into my first team. My loved ones. It's my girlfriend, my sister in the back, my nephew. They're all holding my head. That head is almost as big as my real head, but it made it very easy for me to find myself. Which sounds strange to say, but it made it easy for me to find myself. And I found them and I would feel energy. And what this reminded me of is when you have a rare disease, so often you need your family. You need someone who's going to take care of you, even if it's just someone to make you feel good for a moment. And at mile 8, I needed them and they got me through it. But then I kept going. I left Brooklyn and then I got into Queens. I don't like Queens too much right now because Queens is where there was a Pulaski Bridge, and right around mile 13, which is only halfway through, I was really starting to feel it. If you remember that day, November, it was actually warmer than normal. So I was very much feeling it because as I've learned, my lungs do better in cold than in heat, even though I personally like heat better, and I was starting to feel it. At mile 14, I saw my family and my girlfriend again. I am faking it right now. I am in absolute, utter pain. I don't want them to see that. My sister told me later that my niece said, my uncle doesn't really look that good. They didn't want to tell me. They're also faking as well because I apparently am not looking good. And thinking, okay, but I will keep going with that family. Fortunately, just before leaving Queens, I ran into friends of mine who were waiting for me, who actually are in the Peloton studio. And they had set up shop to surprise me, and they were there. And this group honestly reminded me of my health professionals. My doctor at Johns Hopkins, who kept meeting with me, encouraged me to do it. The infusion center that found a way to still give me my monthly infusion, even during the pandemic. I would drive to the facility, and I could tell how the pandemic was going based on what I saw in the parking lot. I cannot forget. I can only imagine what it was like being inside. I'll never forget the sight of driving up to a hospital and seeing 2 and 3 semi-trailers there, knowing what was in there while I'm going in and people are doing something to protect me. So and that reminded me of that feeling. And they said, you can keep going. And I kept going. Then I got to mile 17 in Manhattan, running on First Avenue. The only thing about New York, you can give really great instructions for the subway, but if they make one wrong turn, they get lost. So for the entirety of Manhattan, up First Avenue, all of my friends and family were missing. And I was just running with my own thoughts. And I gotta admit, when you're in the slower group, You know, I listed all those reasons why I can shoot. I'm much slower than the average person. Things were starting to get shut down. They were breaking down activities, and people have been watching marathon runners go by hours. So I saw displays where there used to be big bands were shutting down. Crowds were empty. Places where I heard there would be this huge wall of sound, not there. This picture, the picture that will come back shortly was me really faking it. I can tell you for sure, I knew there was a photographer there, and just before I was the one behind. No shame in her, but this was me. And when I saw the photographer, I was like, oh, let's just throw an action pose. This is completely fake. This is fake news for sure. I was feeling awful, and I was just running up the street, but I was thinking along the way, I've got all these people who are running. I cannot begin to tell you how many folks with SARC had reached out to me and said they were cheering for, they were rooting for me. And then I got to the Bronx. I will say I have extreme love for the Bronx, even though I've never lived there. It's like one person from the Bronx was like 4 or 5 people from Manhattan. Because even though there was no crowd there, they were full of energy. They were full of energy. And it was like those people that you just meet when you have a rare disease who give you feedback on how to live your best life. I have no idea who these guys are, but I was so excited to have someone who was pumping me up. I was like, oh, we got to take a picture. And I gotta say, the Bronx was like that time when you're, as a patient, with a rare disease, you have those really rough days. And sometimes there's just something that gets you to keep moving. For me, it was the Bronx. Because at this point, at 20 miles, I had never run this before on one day in my life. So this is all unknown territory. At this point, I'm lucky because for some reason, my lungs are actually doing well as they can be done after 20 months. My entire body hurts. Every single step hurts. My side hurts, my tops hurt, my head hurts. And then I go back into Manhattan, thinking I'm gonna make it. I run through Harlem, I'm excited about Harlem. And then I get to the edge of Central Park. And I honestly think about quitting at that moment. Mile 22. It's only 4 miles, but I can tell you after 8 hours and 22 miles, I'm really debating, do I have to do this thing? And I swear at that point, I thought I was getting delirious. My name, Calvin. I can't imagine, I'm just going to keep going. It turns out that friends of mine were waiting for me at that point. And we'll see if this works, it may not. But there's video here. But a group of 30 friends, including 3 people who had already finished the marathon, were waiting. And they were cheering me on. And I gave them high fives. I was very excited to see them. It was sweat. I wasn't crying. It was just sweat. So my eyes watering was just because I was sweating. But at that point, I was like, oh, okay, I've got to finish it. And I keep going because they push me along. It's just like sometimes in rare disease, you need someone who's going to push you along. Oh, that's me, but I know the light might make it a little tough. But I continue. There were a lot of high fives. There were a few hugs. And somehow, it's also dark. You may have seen pictures of the New York City Marathon. You see the daytime. It is daytime. Unless you've been running about 6 hours, then it's nighttime. So at mile 25, as I pull into Central Park, I only got one mind. I am in extreme pain. It is now nighttime. And this is the most painful moment of my entire life. The smile is real, but I feel pain in every step, and all I'm thinking is we just have to keep going. We have to keep going. Now, when you're at a big race, they do a countdown from like 1,000 meters on. At 800 meters, I thought about how I was just so unlikely to be here that I can't believe I was trying this. I kept moving forward. At 600, I thought about all the medical professionals again, because there were still people on the course literally picking people up who had fallen, and there were medical professionals still there. People like people in the room who do things that many of us will never even see. And I thought about them. And at 400, I thought about my friends who were just a few miles away who were waiting for me and two other friends to make sure we got here because they were determined we weren't going to lose. And at 200 meters, I thought of my family who was there. and what we were going to talk about when we ended. And at that point, I could see the finish line. Never would I have imagined I had been there. There was no reason I should have completed. And at that moment, I swear, I may have still been delirious, but I heard a voice. I heard my mother's voice, my late mother, died many years ago, saying my name. And as I crossed the finish line, I looked up and I heard her say, well done. And I was America. Now, for me, this medal is more than running the race. It's about people like you who allow people like me to find a way to live with rare disease. There's no way I should have been able to do this. And I know how fortunate I am in many ways. I have doctors in Johns Hopkins and here in Mount Sinai. That's unusual. I have excellent insurance. I am compensated well enough to cover any difference. And partially because I'm a CPA, I am ridiculously meticulous with my health. And I know all of my numbers. And I usually can tell my doctor before she asks, I think my lung function's down. But this, as much as anything, was also about people like me, especially the people I've met with long-term disease and rare disease who can't do it. So what I would ask, whenever you're in a moment where you're debating whether it's worth it for patients like us, I can assure you the work you do matters to so many of us. And on behalf of everyone, including those of us with the medal, I want to thank you for all you've done. Thank you.